Dera was a bright and curious 13-year-old. Her teachers back home often called her a star because she always excelled in her studies. She could solve math problems faster than most of her classmates, and her essays were so good that her English teacher once read one aloud to the entire class. But Dera wasn't just smart, she was beautiful, too. Her skin glowed like the morning sun, and her big, curious eyes seemed to hold 1,000 questions. She was also the only surviving child of her parents. Dera's older brother had passed away when she was just a baby, and her parents had always been extra protective of her. Her mother often told her, "You're our precious jewel, Dera. Shine brightly but stay safe." Dera took her parents' words to heart, always trying to make them proud. She was respectful and obedient and never caused trouble. When her parents decided to send her to St. Victoria's College, they believed it was the best decision for her. They wanted her to learn independence and discipline. "You'll love it there," her father said. "And you'll make lots of friends." Dera was excited but also nervous. She had never been away from home before. Dera just got admitted into St. Victoria's College, a highly reputable college in Amakara. She was excited but also a little scared. What if the seniors are mean? What if I get homesick? She thought, due to the rumors she had heard about living in a boarding school. Her mom, while helping her pack, said something important. "Dera, remember to pray every day. Prayer will protect and guide you, even when I'm not there." Dera nodded, though she didn't fully understand why it was so important. She was more focused on packing her favorite snacks and arranging her books. It was a cold, misty evening when Dera's parents dropped her off at St. Victoria's College. The school stood tall and mysterious, its old brick walls covered with vines. Dera clutched her suitcase tightly, trying not to look nervous. Her mother kissed her on the forehead, and her father patted her shoulder. "You do great here, my dear," her father said with a smile. "Make sure you pray every night," her mother had said when she hugged her goodbye. Dera had nodded, but she didn't think it was that serious. "Why should I pray?" she thought. "I just need to study, make friends, and have fun." As the car drove away, Dera took a deep breath and walked through the heavy iron gates. They creaked loudly, as if complaining. The matron, Mrs. Okeke, greeted Dera with a stiff smile. Her round glasses made her eyes look huge. "Welcome to St. Victoria's," she said in a deep, raspy voice. "Follow me to the dormitory." Dera followed her through narrow hallways that smelled of old wood and damp air. She passed the classrooms with tall windows and desks lined in perfect rows. Everything felt ancient, like stepping into a different time. When they reached the dormitory, Dera met her roommates, cheerful Tolu, who loved to chat, quiet Aisha, who barely spoke, playful Emma, and her bunkmate Simi, who was quiet too and brilliant. But Aisha and Simi later became her close friends. "I'm Simi, your bunkmate. And I'm Aisha, your bunk neighbor. What is your name?" both asked eagerly with a smile. Dera replied shyly. As they helped Dera unpack her belongings inside her shelf. On her first day at St. Victoria's, everything felt new and strange. The large, ancient buildings seemed to whisper secrets she couldn't understand. The seniors walked around with an air of authority, their uniforms always neat, and their voices commanding. It didn't take long for Dera to learn that life in a boarding house wasn't easy. The senior students had their own rules, and they expected the juniors to follow them without question. Fetch my water, one senior ordered her on her second day. Dera obeyed quickly, not wanting to get into trouble. Sometimes, the seniors were mean for no reason. They would laugh at how some juniors spoke or scold them for little mistakes. Dera wasn't spared either. One evening, as she was sitting alone in the library, a senior walked in and frowned at her. "Didn't anyone tell you?" the senior said sharply. "You're not allowed to stay alone at night. Don't you know the rules?" Dera quickly apologized, but the senior didn't seem satisfied. "This is your first and last warning," the senior said. "Never move around alone in this school at night. Do you hear me?" Dera nodded, but she couldn't help feeling puzzled. Why was everyone so afraid of being alone at night? She wanted to ask Simi about it, but something told her to stay quiet. Over the next few days, Dera heard more warnings from the seniors. "Never wander off alone," one said during dinner. "If you do, don't say we didn't warn you." Another senior added, "This school has rules for a reason. Follow them, and you'll be fine." Despite the strict rules and the occasional bullying, Dera tried her best to adjust. She focused on her studies and always made sure her assignments were perfect. Her teachers quickly noticed her brilliance and praised her during lessons. Even the school matron once smiled at her and said, "You're a promising young girl, Dera. Keep it up." But no matter how hard she tried, Dera couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something wasn't right at St. Victoria's. The whispers of the seniors, the strange warnings about being alone, and the eerie silence at night made her feel like the school was hiding a dark secret. One chilly night, Dera woke up suddenly. The dormitory was pitch black except for the faint light from the moon. She thought she heard footsteps, but when she peeked out of her blanket, she saw nothing. "Maybe it's just my imagination," she whispered to herself, pulling her blanket over her head. But then she heard it again, soft footsteps, like someone walking on tiptoes. The next day, she told Simi about it. "I heard footsteps last night," Dera said nervously. Simi's eyes grew wide. "You heard them too," she whispered. "What do you mean, too?" Dera asked, her heart racing. Simi leaned closer and whispered, "Some girls say the school is haunted. They say strange things happen here, especially at night." Dera's stomach flipped. Haunted. She didn't believe in ghosts, but the way Simi said it made her feel uneasy. That night, as Dera lay on her bed, she kept her eyes wide open. She wanted to prove to herself that nothing weird was going on. But just as she was about to fall asleep, she heard it again, the soft, slow footsteps. They were getting closer. Dera's heart pounded. She sat up and saw something moving near the window. It looked like a shadow, but it wasn't shaped like a person. It was tall and thin, and it seemed to glide rather than walk. She wanted to scream, but her voice got stuck in her throat. Instead, she grabbed her flashlight and shone it toward the window. The shadow vanished. Dera didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, she told Simi. "I saw it," Dera said, her voice trembling. Simi looked worried. "We need to be careful," she said. "Some of the older students say it's not safe to talk about the shadows. They say it makes them angry." Have you ever wondered why the seniors don't stay out late at night? Simi asked. Dera looked at her friend, surprised. "Why?" she asked softly. Simi hesitated, then said, "There's a story." They say this school isn't just a place for learning. They say there's something that walks the halls at night. Dera's heart skipped a beat. Yeah, I saw it, Simi. We need to be extra careful and prayerful too. Dera decided that night to be extra careful. But deep down, her curiosity was growing. What was really going on at St. Victoria's? That night, Dera decided she wouldn't let fear win. She whispered a short prayer, just like her mom had told her. "Dear God," she said softly, "please keep me safe and help me understand what's going on." As she closed her eyes, she felt a tiny bit braver. But deep down, she knew this was just the beginning. Something strange was happening at St. Victoria's, and she was determined to find out what it was. Dera, while laying down on her bed, had heard some strange whispers which made her shiver. The dormitory was dark, with only a little light from the moon shining through the windows. Most of the girls were already asleep, their soft snores filling the room. Dera lay on her bunk, trying to sleep, but the strange whispers she heard earlier wouldn't leave her mind. She closed her eyes and told herself, "It's just my imagination." But then she heard it again, soft, strange voices. They sounded like they were coming from the walls. Dera's heart began to race. She turned to look at Aisha, her bunk neighbor, but Aisha was fast asleep. Dera pulled her blanket over her head. "If I don't see it, it can't hurt me," she whispered to herself. Suddenly, Dera heard footsteps. They were soft at first, like someone tiptoeing, but they were getting louder. Tap, tap, tap. She peeked out from under her blanket, and what she saw made her freeze. Near the window, there was a tall, dark shadow. It didn't look like a person. It didn't have a face or arms like hers, just a smoky shape that moved slowly. The shadow raised what looked like a long, thin hand and tapped the window. Tap, tap. Dera's hands were shaking. She wanted to scream, but her voice wouldn't come out. She shut her eyes and whispered, "Please, God, help me. Please keep me safe." When she opened her eyes again, the shadow was gone. The room was quiet, and the window was still. Dera didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, she told Simi what had happened. "I saw something last night," Dera whispered as they made their beds. It was near the window. Simi's face turned pale. "A shadow?" she asked softly. "Yes," Dera replied, her voice shaky. "It was tall and dark, and it tapped on the window." Simi nodded quickly. "I've heard about it before," she said. "My cousin told me. She said this school is haunted, but the seniors don't want us to talk about it." "Why not?" Dera asked. "They say it makes the shadows angry," Simi said. "And they say the shadows only show themselves to people who are alone at night." Dera's stomach twisted. "Why didn't anyone warn me?" "Because the seniors don't like us talking about it," Simi replied. "And if you break their rules, they'll make your life miserable." Dera knew the seniors were strict. They liked to give orders to the younger students, making them do things like fetch water or carry their bags. Some seniors were kind, but others seemed to enjoy being mean. Dera had already been scolded by one senior for sitting alone in the library. "Don't stay alone at night," the senior had warned her. "It's dangerous." Dera thought about that warning now. Maybe the seniors weren't just being bossy. Maybe they knew something she didn't know. That evening, during dinner, Dera decided to ask Aisha, her other friend. if anyone knew about the strange things at St. Victoria's. Aisha leaned close and whispered, "The seniors say this school was built on an old graveyard. The people buried here weren't happy when the school was built, so now their spirits wander the halls at night." Dera shivered. "What do we do?" "Stay together," Aisha said. "And whatever you do, never wander off alone at night." But Dera wasn't satisfied with just staying safe. She wanted to know more. Why had the shadow appeared to her? Was it trying to tell her something? That night, as the other girls went to sleep, Dera stayed awake. She hid her flashlight under her pillow and kept her eyes on the dormitory door. If the shadow came back, she wanted to see where it went. The clock struck midnight, and the room was silent. Dera felt her heart beating loudly in her chest. Suddenly, she saw it, the same shadowy figure, moving slowly near the window. This time, the shadow didn't stay by the window. It glided toward the dormitory door. Dera sat up quietly and grabbed her flashlight. She didn't know where she got the courage, but she decided to follow it. As she tiptoed toward the door, she heard a voice behind her. "Where are you going?" Dera turned and saw Aisha sitting up in bed, her eyes wide with fear. "Are you crazy? You can't follow it," Aisha hissed. "I have to," Dera whispered. "I need to know what it is." Before Aisha could stop her, Dera slipped out of the dormitory and into the dark hallway. The shadow moved ahead of her, gliding silently through the corridor. Dera's flashlight flickered, but she kept going. Her heart was pounding, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. The shadow turned a corner, and Dera followed. She found herself in a part of the school she had never seen before. The walls were covered in old, faded paintings, and the air felt cold and heavy. Suddenly, the shadow stopped in front of a large, wooden door. Dera stared at it, wondering what was behind the door. The shadow didn't move. It just hovered there, pointing at the door with its long, misty arm. Dera took a deep breath and reached for the doorknob. Dera's hand trembled as she touched the cold, metal doorknob. For a moment, she hesitated. What if something dangerous was on the other side? But the shadow didn't move, it just hovered there, silent and still, pointing at the door as if waiting for her to act. Taking a deep breath, Dera turned the knob. The door creaked loudly as it opened, and a chilly breeze rushed out, making her shiver. Beyond the door was a staircase leading down into darkness. Dera shone her flashlight into the stairwell, but the light didn't reach far. She could only see the first few steps before everything disappeared into shadow. The shadowy figure slipped through the doorway and began descending the stairs, its misty form blending into the darkness. "Wait!" Dera whispered loudly, but the shadow didn't stop. Her heart thudded in her chest. She thought about turning back and running to the dormitory, but something inside her urged her to keep going. She wanted answers, and this might be her only chance to find them. Clutching her flashlight tightly, Dera stepped through the door and began to follow the shadow down the stairs. Each step creaked under her weight, and the air grew colder the farther she went. At the bottom of the stairs, she found herself in a large, dusty room. Old furniture was stacked against the walls, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. In the center of the room was a strange, circular marking on the floor. It looked like a drawing, with symbols and shapes Dera didn't understand. The shadow stood near the circle, its misty arm pointing at something on the far wall. Dera's flashlight followed the direction of its arm, and she saw a tall cabinet covered in dust. "What's in there?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The shadow didn't answer, of course. It simply floated near the cabinet, waiting. Dera stepped closer, her shoes crunching on the dusty floor. She reached out and opened the cabinet doors. Inside, she found an old leather-bound book, its cover faded and worn. The title was written in strange letters she couldn't read. As she touched the book, she heard a faint whisper. "Help us," the voice said. It was soft, almost like a breeze, but Dera was sure she heard it. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. The shadow didn't respond, but the whisper came again. "Help us." Dera's hands shook as she opened the book. The pages were filled with drawings and writings in a language she didn't understand. But one page caught her eye. It had a picture of the circular marking on the floor, and beside it were 3 words written in English: "Do not disturb." Suddenly, the shadow moved closer to her, and the room grew even colder. Dera felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up. She realized something: the shadow wasn't trying to harm her, it was warning her. "What happened here?" she asked, her voice shaky. Before she could get an answer, she heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Dera's flashlight flickered as she turned toward the sound. "Who's there?" a voice called. It was the matron. Dera's heart sank. She was in big trouble now. "What are you doing here, Dera?" the matron's stern voice echoed through the room. Dera froze, not knowing what to say. But when she turned back toward the shadow, it was gone. The room felt less cold, and the strange circle on the floor seemed less vivid, almost as if it were fading away. The matron's eyes narrowed as she looked at the book in Dera's hands. "Where did you find that?" she asked sharply, stepping closer. Dera stammered, "I followed something. A shadow, it led me here." The matron's face turned pale. She snatched the book from Dera and slammed the cabinet doors shut. "You shouldn't be here," she said in a low voice. "This place is off limits for a reason." "But why?" Dera asked, her fear replaced by curiosity. "What's going on at this school?" The matron hesitated, her stern expression softening for a moment. "There are things you don't understand, Dera," she said. "And it's better that you don't try to find out. Go back to bed. Now." Reluctantly, Dera obeyed. As she climbed the stairs back to the dormitory, her mind was racing with questions. What was the book? Why was the matron so scared? And why had the shadow led her to that room? That night, as Dera lay in bed, she made a decision. She wasn't going to let this mystery go. Whatever secret Saint Victoria's was hiding, she was determined to uncover them. The next morning, Dera woke up feeling tired. She hadn't slept much after the strange things she saw. As she got ready for class, she couldn't stop thinking about the shadow, the hidden room, and the strange book. "Are you okay?" Aisha asked, noticing Dera was quiet. "I'm fine," Dera lied. She didn't want to scare her friends or get in trouble with the matron again. But inside, she felt anything but fine. At breakfast, Dera saw the matron watching her. The matron's eyes were sharp, like she was warning Dera not to say anything. Dera quickly looked away and focused on her food. During classes, Dera tried to pay attention, but her thoughts kept going back to the strange words she saw in the book, "Do not disturb." What did they mean? Why was the matron so scared of the book? At lunchtime, Dera whispered to Simi and Aisha, "Meet me at the back of the library after school. I have something to tell you." The two girls looked at her curiously but nodded. After the final bell rang, Dera sneaked to the back of the library, where it was quiet and no one would hear them. Simi and Aisha arrived soon after. "What's going on?" Simi asked. Dera looked around to make sure no one else was there. Then she whispered, "Last night, I followed the shadow." "You what?" Aisha gasped, her eyes wide. "I followed it down some stairs to a hidden room," Dera explained. "There was a circle on the floor, and the shadow showed me an old book. The matron caught me and took the book, but she seemed really scared." Simi frowned. "A hidden room. A circle. This is bad, Dera. My cousin told me stories about strange things happening at this school. She said there are places no one is supposed to go because of ghosts." "Ghost?" Aisha whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't think the shadow was trying to hurt me," Dera said. "It looked like it wanted me to find the book." "Why you?" Simi asked. "I don't know," Dera admitted. "But I want to find out." "You're crazy," Aisha said. "What if something bad happens? You already got caught once." "I'll be careful," Dera promised. "But I can't stop now. I need to know the truth." That night, Dera stayed awake again. She waited until everyone else was asleep, then she slipped out of bed and tiptoed to the hallway. This time, she brought a small notebook and a pencil. If she found anything strange, she wanted to write it down. She crept back to the hidden door and slowly opened it. The stairs creaked under her feet as she went down. When she reached the bottom, she gasped. The circle on the floor was glowing faintly, and the air felt colder than before. Dera took a deep breath and stepped closer. She knelt down and touched the edge of the circle. Nothing happened at first, but then she heard the whisper again, "Help us." "Who are you?" Dera asked, her voice shaking. "What do you want me to do?" The whisper grew louder. "Find the key. Free us." "What key?" Dera asked, but there was no answer. The whisper faded, and the room went silent again. Dera stood up and looked around the room. She searched the old furniture and dusty shelves, hoping to find something that looked like a key. But there was nothing. Feeling frustrated, Dera decided to leave. As she climbed the stairs, she bumped into something solid. "Dera," a voice said. She looked up and saw Simi standing at the top of the stairs. "What are you doing here?" Simi whispered, her face pale. "I needed to check the room again," Dera said. "I think the shadow wants me to find something. It said I need to find a key." "A key for what?" Simi asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Dera replied. "But I'm going to find out." Dera and Simi quickly tiptoed back to the dormitory, their hearts pounding. They didn't want the matron, or worse, a senior, to catch them. Once they were safely under their blankets, Simi whispered, "Dera, this is getting scary. What if this shadow is leading you into trouble?" "I don't think it wants to hurt me," Dera whispered back. "It said, 'Help us.' Maybe it needs my help." Simi frowned but didn't argue. She knew Dera was determined, and once Dera made up her mind, nothing could stop her. The next morning, Dera couldn't stop thinking about the key. Where could it be? What did it unlock? She decided to start looking for clues. During break time, she went to the library. It was quiet and full of old books that no one ever touched. She searched the shelves, hoping to find something that looked like the strange book she had seen in the hidden room. "Find anything?" Aisha asked, appearing behind her. Dera jumped. "Aisha, don't scare me like that." "Sorry," Aisha said, grinning. "Simi told me about the key. I thought you might need help." Dera smiled. "Thanks. Let's check these shelves. Maybe there's a book about the history of the school." The girls searched for what felt like hours. Finally, Aisha pulled out a dusty book titled The Story of St. Victoria's College. "Look at this," Aisha said excitedly. Dera opened the book carefully. Inside were old pictures of the school when it was first built. There were photos of teachers, students, and even a picture of the matron when she was younger. Then Dera found something strange. It was a picture of the same circular marking she had seen in the hidden room. Underneath the picture, the caption read, "The Forgotten Seal." "What's a seal?" Aisha asked, tilting her head. "I think it's like a magical lock," Dera guessed. "Maybe that's what the shadow wants me to open." The next few pages told a story about the school's history. A long time ago, the land where the school was built belonged to a kind old woman named Madam Victoria. She loved children and wanted to build a place where they could learn and grow. But the story said something strange happened during the construction. The workers found something buried deep in the ground, an old box sealed with heavy chains. They tried to open it, but strange things began to happen. Tools disappeared, shadows moved on their own, and people heard whispers in the night. To keep everyone safe, Madam Victoria ordered the box to be hidden and sealed away. She created a special marking, the circular seal, to keep the box locked forever. Dera's hands shook as she turned the page. The last line of the story read, "If the seal is broken, the spirits will rise." "What do you think it means?" Aisha asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think the shadow wants me to find the box," Dera said. "Maybe the spirits want to be free." "Free?" Aisha repeated, her eyes wide. "What if they're dangerous?" "I don't know," Dera admitted. "But I have to find out." That evening, Dera and her friends sneaked out to the school garden. The book had mentioned that the box was buried somewhere on the school grounds. They decided to start their search there. The garden was quiet, with only the sound of crickets chirping. The girls brought flashlights and began looking for anything unusual. After a while, Simi called out, "Over here. I think I found something." Dera and Aisha ran to where Simi was standing. She was pointing at a small stone plaque on the ground. The plaque was old and cracked, but Dera could still make out the words carved into it, "Do not disturb." "This must be it," Dera whispered. "What do we do now?" Simi asked nervously. "We dig," Dera said firmly. The girls found some sticks and began to dig around the plaque. The soil was hard, and it took a long time, but eventually, they uncovered a rusty metal box wrapped in chains. "This is it," Dera said, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. "What do we do now?" Aisha asked. "We need the key," Dera said. The shadow said to find it. "Where do we even look for a key?" Simi asked, frustrated. "I think I know," Dera said. She thought about the matron's reaction when she saw the book. The matron has it. She must be keeping it somewhere safe. Are you saying we have to sneak into the matron's office? Aisha asked, her eyes wide. Yes, Dera said. It's the only way. That night, the three girls gathered in the dormitory after lights out. Dera outlined her plan in hushed whispers. We'll sneak into the matron's office after she does her rounds, she said. She keeps her keys in the top drawer of her desk. I've seen her lock it before. This is risky, Simi said, her voice trembling. What if she catches us? We'll be careful, Dera assured her. It's our only chance. When the dormitory fell silent, and the matron's footsteps faded into the distance, Dera gave the signal. The girls slipped out of their bunks and tiptoed toward the matron's office. The hallway was dark, and every little sound seemed louder in the stillness. Aisha held a small flashlight, and its beam wobbled as her hands shook. Are you sure about this? She whispered. Dera nodded. We'll be quick. When they reached the office door, Dera tried the handle. It was locked, as she had expected. She pulled out a pin she had found earlier and began fiddling with the lock. Where did you learn to do that? Simi asked, amazed. My cousin taught me, Dera said, grinning despite her nerves. He loves spy movies. After a few tense moments, the lock clicked open. The girls slipped inside and closed the door behind them. The office smelled of old paper and polish. A dim moonlight filtered through the window, casting long shadows on the walls. Dera went straight to the desk and pulled the top drawer. As expected, it was locked. Let's hurry, Aisha whispered, keeping an eye on the door. Dera used her pin again, and the drawer popped open. Inside were a bunch of papers, some coins, and a small, shiny key. This must be it, Dera whispered, holding up the key. Suddenly, they heard footsteps in the hallway. The matron was coming back. Quick, hide, Simi hissed. The girls ducked behind a tall bookshelf just as the office door creaked open. The matron stepped inside, her lantern casting a warm glow across the room. Dera held her breath, clutching the key tightly in her hand. Her heart pounded as the matron walked to the desk and checked the drawer. Who's been here? The matron muttered, her voice low and sharp. The girls stayed as still as statues, praying they wouldn't be found. After a few tense moments, the matron sighed, locked the drawer, and left the office. The girls waited until her footsteps faded, then slipped out of their hiding spot and quietly crept back to the dormitory. The next evening, when the coast was clear, Dera, Aisha, and Simi returned to the garden. The rusty metal box sat where they had left it, still wrapped in its heavy chains. Dera knelt beside it and inserted the key into the lock. Her hands shook as she turned it. The lock clicked open, and the chains fell away. Are you sure about this? Aisha asked, her voice trembling. No, Dera admitted. But we've come this far. She lifted the lid, and a gust of cold wind rushed out, making the girls shiver. Inside the box was a small glass jar filled with a swirling, silver mist. What is that? Simi whispered, staring in awe. Before Dera could answer, the mist began to glow. It swirled faster and faster until it shot out of the jar, filling the air around them. The girls stepped back, terrified, as the mist formed into shapes, people. There were 3 of them, a man, a woman, and a young boy. They looked pale and transparent, like ghosts. "Thank you," the man said in a soft, echoing voice. "Who are you?" Dera asked, her fear replaced by curiosity. "We were trapped here long ago," the woman said. "The seal was placed to protect others from the curse that bound us. But you have freed us. Are you going to hurt us?" Aisha asked, her voice trembling. "No," the boy said, smiling. "You've given us peace. We can finally leave this place." The three spirits floated upward, their forms dissolving into the night sky. As they disappeared, the cold air grew warm again, and the circle on the ground faded completely. Dera stared at the empty box, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. "They're gone," Simi said softly. Dera nodded. "We did the right thing." The next day, the girls returned to their usual routine, but things felt different. The eerie feeling that had always hung over the school was gone, and even the matron seemed calmer. Dera never told anyone else about what had happened, and neither did Simi or Aisha. It became their secret, a story they would always remember. As Dera sat in class, she looked out the window and smiled. She had faced her fears, solved the mystery, and helped set things right. Life at St. Victoria slowly returned to normal. The strange whispers at night stopped, and the dormitory no longer felt scary. The other students didn't know what had changed, but they could feel it. Even the seniors, who usually acted tough, seemed calmer and less strict. Dera, Simi, and Aisha felt proud of what they had done. They had uncovered a secret, solved the mystery, and helped the spirits find peace. But they knew they couldn't tell anyone about it. It was a secret they would keep forever. One sunny afternoon, the matron called all the students to the assembly hall. "I have some wonderful news," she said, smiling warmly. "The school will soon have new books for the library, new desks, and even a playground for you to enjoy." The students gasped and clapped their hands in excitement. A playground at St. Victoria's? That was unheard of. As the cheering filled the room, Dera looked at Simi and Aisha. They exchanged knowing smiles. Deep down, Dera felt like their actions had lifted the heavy sadness that had been hanging over the school for so long. That weekend, the three friends returned to the garden where they had found the box. It looked so different now, peaceful, bright, and full of colorful flowers. "Do you think the spirits are really gone?" Simi asked, brushing a leaf off her skirt. "I think so," Dera said. "They seemed happy when they left. I don't think they'll come back." "I'm glad we helped them," Aisha said, sitting down on the soft grass. "But I'm also glad we don't have to deal with ghosts anymore." Dera laughed. "Me too." They sat together under the shade of a big tree, talking about how brave they had been. They promised to always stick together, no matter what challenges come their way. "You know," Simi said thoughtfully, "you taught us something important, Dera." "What's that?" Dera asked, tilting her head. "That being brave doesn't mean you're not scared," Simi said. "It means you don't let your fear stop you from doing the right thing." Dera smiled. "And you taught me that it's okay to ask for help. I couldn't have done this alone." The three friends joined hands, sealing their promise of friendship. Over the next few weeks, things at St. Victoria's continued to improve. The new playground was built, and the library got shiny new books. Even the seniors stopped bullying the younger students as much. Dera worked hard in her classes, and her teachers praised her for her bright ideas and kind heart. Simi and Aisha also thrived, and the three friends became known as the Unstoppable Team. One day, as Dera walked through the garden alone, she thought about the spirits. She wondered what their lives had been like before they were trapped. Were they happy now, wherever they were? A gentle breeze blew through the garden, ruffling her hair. Dera smiled. Somehow, she felt like the spirits were saying, "Thank you." That night, as Dera lay in bed, she thought about everything she had learned. She realized that being brave doesn't mean you're never afraid, it means you don't let fear stop you from doing what's right. She also learned how important it is to listen to others, even when their stories seem strange or scary. The spirits hadn't wanted to hurt anyone, they just needed someone to care and help them. Most importantly, Dera realized that true friendship is about standing by each other, even in the scariest moments. Without Simi and Aisha, she couldn't have done it. From that day on, Dera made a promise to herself: she would always try to be brave, kind, and a good friend to everyone around her.